All right, welcome back, everyone. I am Brian. You are Chords and Notes Nation, and you have been invited once again into my living room for something special. Our Indonesia documentary series. We are moving into the Majapahit, if I said that right, Empire era of Indonesia. We did Srivijaya, I think it was called. I'm not sure if I pronounced it right. So that earlier period, before this period, that empire, now we're moving into this empire. We're going to be going through the historical portion of Indonesia, their history, Nusantara, and then we're going to move into other cultural documentaries. It's all sort of about this education about what is Indonesia, who are Indonesians, why are they such loving people, because they have been tremendous supporters of this channel. I don't think I've ever received a negative comment from anyone in Indonesia, and they are like the largest contingent on Chords and Notes Nation. So thank you guys so much. I do appreciate that. There have been so many artists musicians from Indonesia that I have reacted to. Check out the playlists. You're going to see how many. But in that, I've noticed that there's a lot of differences as well as similarities. So it piqued my interest, and as I've gone along, I've done the Wonderland in Indonesia series by Alfie Rev. I have done the Guardians of Nusantara. I've done the Fernwood Chronicles, and I'm starting to get this picture. And for me, I want to put on my old hat of being a social studies teacher. And so that's why I'm kind of going through the historical, the history of the area and the country. And then I'm going to move into more, I'll probably spend some time with some geography, get a little more understanding of the overall geography, and then of course more into the culture. I do know about the Indonesian martial arts. I am a practitioner of martial arts, so I do know that there's Silat, I know that there's Kali, Panintakan, all of that is involved as well. That's one part of the culture, but there's going to be food and there's going to be languages and all of that. I really just want to get this educational experience for myself, share it with you guys. Now, this video is off of Kings and Generals YouTube channel. It's called Rise and Fall of the Majapahit Empire, Golden Age of Indonesia. It is about 25 minutes, 22, 23 minutes long. But there are some commercials built into the documentary. Like like you'll see, it's not just commercials that pop up. So we're not going to be able to skip those. But we'll have that happen. That's okay. We'll just ride through with it, and it's all good, right? All right. Now, before I forget, Kopi Mana Kopi. Get your Chords and Notes Nation coffee mug if you can. It is on my spring store. You can find that address on my channel below in the description box. All right, here we go.
The Republic of Indonesia is the most globally influential nation that the average Westerner knows almost nothing about. Home to over 275 million people, it is the fourth most highly populated country in the world and the largest majority Muslim country on the planet. Indonesia's territory extends over 17,000 islands, spread out over 5,000 kilometers of ocean, upon which live over 300 distinct ethnic groups, among whom 6 different religions are worshipped. That the modern Indonesian Republic has managed to unify such a huge and diverse territory into a coherent nation-state is nothing short of astounding, which makes it all the more incredible that this is not the first time in history it has happened. Indeed, today we will not be discussing the modern nation of Indonesia. Instead, we will explore the origins, culture, and history of a medieval thessalocracy that, in many ways, lays the groundwork for what Indonesia is today. Join us as we go back to a time before the ascendancy of Islam in the Nusantara archipelago and dive into the story of the Majapahit, a Hindu-Buddhist empire that mastered the ocean. There's one thing that even becoming master of all the spices of the East won't help you with: hair loss. So let's mention something instead that does help. Our sponsor for this video, Keeps. 2 in 3 men lose hair to male pattern baldness before they are 35 years old, ranging from receding hair.
Okay, we don't have to listen to that, but I noticed that's where the colors come from, the red and the white. So that originates from the Majapahit era. You let me know, but it certainly looks like that. Thessalocracy being a maritime empire, so there's going to be a lot of trade, there's going to be a lot of cultural exchange, there's going to be a lot of different things going on there. They're not staying stationary, they're moving 17,000 islands. My goodness, you guys, that's a lot. What are we doing? Why is this happening? Okay, are we done? If you want to beat hair loss, just shave your head. That's all you got to do.
And generals. While the Majapahit was the largest and wealthiest empire to arise in Indonesia's pre-modern past, the building blocks of its vibrant culture, political policies, and immense economic prosperity all have their roots in the earlier history and natural geography of the island it was born on, the island of Java. From ancient times to the present day, Java has served as the beating heart of the vast Nusantara archipelago, and was the home island of most of Indonesia's most prominent historical states. Today, Java is the most highly populated island in the world, boasting a staggering population of over 150 million, which amounts to about 3 England's worth of people. The vast majority of Java's huge population is descended from ancient sailors who, around 3,500 years ago, crested upon Java's lush shores aboard sturdy catamarans and outrigger canoes. These voyagers were the Austronesians, the greatest seafarers ever to live. Their dispersal around the islands of Southeast Asia was just one stop in a multi-millennia ocean-bound migration that began in Taiwan around 5,000 years ago and ended on the islands of Rapa Nui and New Zealand around 800 years ago. The Austronesian seafarers who made Java the final step in their ocean odyssey would quickly master the lands and seas of their new home, and their descendants would build some of the wealthiest and most culturally sophisticated states in all of history. The reason why Java is so populous in the modern day, and was so disproportionately prominent throughout history, is because its climate and location make it the single most bountiful island on Earth. Over 18 active volcanoes dot Java's jungle's landscape, spewing a steady stream of volcanic ash that, when settled into the soil, creates the most agriculturally productive land on the planet.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there. Yeah, that's absolutely 100% right. When you have all of that fertile soil and all of that agricultural productivity, now you have a basis of trade. You have a basis of economy. You have an agricultural economy, and everybody needs food, right? So you actually have now the upper hand in trade. So very cool. All right.
On top of being an agrarian paradise, Java is the gateway to the Malacca Strait, a central nexus of a maritime Silk Road that since antiquity has connected China to the ancient civilizations of India, Persia, Arabia, and beyond. The long-distance trade that flowed through this strait was facilitated by seasonal monsoon winds that made the journey both speedy and predictable for sail-powered ships. The main exports that Java contributed to the maritime Silk Road were priceless spices like cloves, nutmeg, pepper, and mace, grown on the so-called Spice Islands of Maluku to the east, but typically distributed by the rulers of Java. As early as the 1st century AD, precious Indonesian spices were traveling as far afield as the Roman Empire.
Oh, wow.
Overall, with access to the world's most productive farmland and valuable spices, and situated right at the bottleneck of the world's most lucrative trade route, it is no wonder that the kingdoms of Java were able to achieve a level of power and prestige that many of their contemporaries could only dream of.
That's everything, especially if you control that trade route, that strait that goes into the rest of Asia and into Europe. Even over to Africa. That's absolutely. So they have that under control. They have Like I said, they have the food, they've got the spices, which are very valuable as well. They've got the trade route under their own control, and you have the favorable winds that will make traveling a lot easier. So, yeah, they're set up for success at this point.
As the monsoon winds blew foreign traders onto Javanese shores, so too did they blow in foreign philosophies, sciences, political principles, and religions.
And that'll always
While
happen.
the Austronesians were originally an animist people, constant contact with the civilizations of India saw them slowly adopt Hinduism and Buddhism as their two main faiths. By the 8th century AD, Javanese rulers had begun to portray themselves as avatars of Hindu gods, like Vishnu and Shiva, and style themselves as Devaraja, an ancient Sanskrit word meaning God-King. Grand monuments were consecrated to glorify their divinely mandated reigns, such as Borobudur, which to this day remains the largest Buddhist structure in the world, and
Yeah, and then, of course, if you as rulers are able to tap into the religious aspect and tie the religious and the political together and set yourself up as divine rulers, now you're going to have people that are going to be less likely to challenge you and more likely to follow you because they don't want to challenge their own faith in their own belief in their gods and reap the consequences of that. So a very shrewd move on their part, on the ruler's part, to start merging those ideas into their political structure.
Prambanan, the second largest Hindu temple in Southeast Asia. Despite this, neither Hinduism nor Buddhism fully displaced the pre-existing animist beliefs of the Austronesian peoples. In Java, new religions did not necessitate the abandoning of existing beliefs, but instead added more strands to an ever richer woven fabric of connections to the supernatural world. If India was the place from which the kings of Java received their spiritual legitimacy, then China was the place from where they received their political legitimacy. Throughout most of history, China was the sun around which all of Asia orbited, and even faraway Java felt the Middle Kingdom's glow. It was an ancient custom that foreign kingdoms wishing to do commerce with China had to swear nominal fealty to the Chinese emperor, something the rulers of Java played along with in order to gain access to Chinese riches. Throughout the medieval era, the political ties between China and Java ran deep, and successful rulers in Java often underlined their entitlement to rule by demonstrating China's approval. Or, in the case of today's titular Javanese empire, by successfully repudiating China's overlordship. Indeed, the story of the Majapahit's rise to power begins with the emperor of the Yuan dynasty, known better perhaps as the Great Khan of Khans. In the late 1280s AD, Kublai Khan, grandson of Chinggis, ruled over China as the emperor of the Yuan dynasty. As master of the Dragon Throne, Kublai was not just a Mongol Khan, but had inherited the political role of the Chinese emperors of old. Consequently, Kublai expected submission from all of the Celestial Kingdom's traditional tributary vassals, including those in Java. By the 13th century, the most powerful state on Java was the Kingdom of Singhasari. Under the rule of the mighty Buddhist warrior king Kartanagara, Singhasari's coastal borders had expanded rapidly throughout the 1200s, monopolizing control over the crucial waterways of the Malacca Strait. The Great Khan looked upon Singhasari's growing chokehold over trade with concern. Worried that the Javanese kingdom might grow so bold as to renounce Java's traditional status as tributary vassals of China, Kublai decided to remind King Kartanagara of his place, demanding he increase his yearly tribute to the Dragon Throne and send hostages from his royal family to the Yuan court. Not only did Kartanagara refuse to obey the Khan's orders, he mutilated the Mongol envoys who had been sent to convey them. Naturally, the Great Yuan had only one response to this great insult, and a primarily Chinese punitive expedition of 1,000 ships and 20,000 men was assembled to sail south to bring the indolent Kartanagara to heel. However, when this fleet arrived off the coast of Java 3 years later, in 1293, they were met with the rather anticlimactic news that King Kartanagara was already dead, overthrown and slain by his treacherous vassal Jayakatwang, the Prince of Kadiri. However, this usurper's power was far from secure. Raden Wijaya, the son-in-law of the late Gettr, had organized a counter-revolution from his base of power in East Java, a stronghold called Majapahit. Raden Wijaya approached their Chinese leaders and promised that if they helped him defeat Jayakatwang, he would gladly submit before the great Khan of Khans and pay a hefty yearly tribute to the Yuan court. Seeing this as an opportunity to place an obedient vassal on the Javanese throne, the Yuan generals ultimately accepted this offer. Joining together, the combined forces of Majapahit and Yuan crushed Jayakatwang in battle. However, barely had the Yuan forces had time to revel in their triumph, did Raden Wijaya turn on his allies, priming his warriors to take to the hills and jungles to put up an asymmetrical resistance against the Chinese interlopers. Having already suffered manpower losses from their fight with Jayakatwang and being stuck deep in an unfamiliar country, the Yuan commanders understood that a prolonged guerrilla war against their traitorous former ally would destroy them. Moreover, the monsoon winds would soon end, leaving them stranded for another 6 months if they did not leave soon. Weighing their options, the Yuan expedition made the wise decision to abandon Java and sail home. A sly schemer and veritable Littlefinger, Raden Wijaya had played friends and enemies alike to come out on top. After the Yuan fleet's departure, Raden Wijaya crowned himself the king of the newly established Majapahit state, a state that would, in the generations to come, expand further than any Javanese kingdom ever had. With that said, the Majapahit Empire got off to a precarious sophomore reign.
First of all, I gotta pause that. That was absolutely shrewd. And the Mongols are, pretty renowned warriors, right? So they show up at your shores ready to kill, and you're like, well, dude, he's dead already, so sorry, but we're in the middle of this trying to decide who's going to succeed, who's going to take the throne, and if you partner with us, we'll swear fealty to your emperor. So he used their forces to help not overthrow, but to help win his throne, basically. And then he's like, nah, screw you guys. I just used you. So he starts waging war with them, and they got to take off, otherwise they're stuck. That was shrewd, man.
After Raden Wijaya's death in 1309, the throne was inherited by his son Gettr. In traditional Javanese accounts, Gettr is ubiquitously maligned as a cruel and lecherous king who spent his days cuckolding his most important vassals. As such, his reign was mired with constant rebellions and came to an ignominious end in 1328 when he was assassinated by his surgeon on the operating table. Since Gettr had no children upon his death, the throne passed to his sister Gettr. This queen proved far more capable than her brother and managed to stabilize the Majapahit realm. She did not accomplish this alone, relying heavily on her prime minister Gajah Mada. Known as the Elephant General, Gajah Mada is perhaps the single most successful military commander in Indonesian history. What Belisarius was to the Byzantine Empire, Gajah Mada was to the Majapahit realm. Upon his appointment to office in 1336, Gajah Mada swore the famous Palapa Oath, in which he declared he would not taste spice until all the outer islands of the Nusantara archipelago were under Majapahit rule.
So what's the significance of that? Why spice? I mean, they're important. They're very highly valued trade, but why that? Why didn't he pledge something else? If you guys know, tell me. Because to me, spice is just like, I don't use a lot of spices anyway, so the significance of spice to me is nothing. But I suppose that's what built the empire, right? So, at least the economy of the empire. Such a treacherous path, this ruling over empires, kingdoms, nations, this game of politics.
It's time to fight.
And his conquests began when he led a Majapahit fleet to seize Bali in 1343. However, it wasn't until Queen Jagataya abdicated the throne in favor of her son, Hayam Wuruk, that Gajah Mada really hit his stride. For the better part of the next decade, his vast fleets expanded Majapahit's influence tenfold, bringing countless states across the entirety of the Nusantara archipelago under Majapahit overlordship. By the time the invincible elephant general died in 1364, the Majapahit Empire had reached its territorial zenith, having evolved into a seaborne power that exerted control over dozens of vassal kingdoms containing hundreds of ethnic groups, over thousands of islands, across 5,000 kilometers of ocean. It was one of the largest empires in the world at the time, and the largest empire in the history of pre-colonial Southeast Asia. However, it should be noted that the Majapahit Empire was not a centralized one. Only the islands of Java and Bali were controlled by officials directly appointed by the king, with the outlying territory.
Okay, now, don't take this the wrong way, but he said before pre-colonial, and I understand he's referring to the European powers that were colonizing, but isn't it an expansion of your territory? Isn't this colonialization anyways, right? Because their home is Java, but look, all these other islands that you're going and you're conquering and you're colonizing those islands with people from your empire. When you do that, you have to bring the language, though they are all related in that area, so the language group may not be so different, but the cultural expectations of whatever king or empire, kingdom or empire. So I would argue that there was local colonization going on, not just, what's to come with the Western colonial powers coming in.
Is consisting of client states ruled by vassal kings with high levels of internal autonomy.
Okay.
At its height, the Majapahit was the master of the rice terraces of Java, the shipping lanes of Malacca, and the spice islands of Maluku.
Okay, a little bit of difference there. You've got these kingdoms that have sworn their fealty to him, but you still have to administer it. You still have to have your administrators there at some level that are maintaining the order, making sure that everything is tied together.
Making it an agricultural cornucopia, a thalassocratic juggernaut, and a serious contender for the richest empire in the world.
Yeah.
The Majapahit's tendrils of commerce extended across the ocean, maintaining trade links with the South Indian Vijayanagara Empire and myriad nations across maritime Southeast Asia, such as Champa, Dagyet, the Ayutthaya Empire, and the Khmer Empire.
Look, even
China was back in the system, with Sino-Japanese relations returning to a relatively stable tributary status quo after the Han Chinese threw off the Mongol Yuan emperors and established the native Ming dynasty.
All right.
Of course, no empire can rely on economic power alone. To that end, the Majapahit was possessed of a mighty navy. Its main warship was the sleek yet sturdy Jong, an ocean-going transport vessel that could easily go toe-to-toe with any ship from Europe's age of exploration. The Majapahit were said to be capable of assembling a fleet of up to 400 Jongs, alongside innumerable thousands of smaller vessels. On top of this, the Majapahit were one of the few nations in the medieval world rich enough to field a full-time standing army. This force of professional troops numbered 30,000 strong, comprising foot soldiers, charioteers, and elephant riders. With contributions from their vassals across the Indonesian archipelago, the Majapahit could assemble up to 200,000 soldiers during a time when armies in Europe barely numbered above the low thousands. After gunpowder technology was introduced to Java during the Mongol invasion of 1293, the Majapahit proved to be quick adapters and soon became Southeast Asia's premier pioneers of firearm warfare. Perhaps the most iconic Javanese weapon is the chetbang, a type of bronze hand cannon employed by the invincible Gajah Mada during his conquests of the outer islands. During the golden reign of Hayam Wuruk, the extravagance of the Majapahit royal court knew no bounds. Even the king himself was said to participate in the dazzling performances of the age, taking to the stage in a golden mask to perform topang, a form of ritual dance known to take years to master. Per the Devaraja tradition, the rulers of Majapahit derived their right to rule by virtue of being the incarnations of God on earth, occupying a place in their kingdom that reflected the divine's place in the cosmos. Raden Wijaya, founder of the Majapahit dynasty, was posthumously depicted by his descendants as Harihara, an amalgamation of the deities Shiva and Vishnu. Throughout its golden years, the Majapahit realm was a global center of culture and learning. Its capital of Trowulan was a thriving cosmopolitan entrepot, with traders and dignitaries from China, Bengal, Gujarat, Persia, and beyond all rubbing shoulders on its gilded streets. Even adventurers from faraway Europe, like the Franciscan friar Odoric of Pordenone, sprinkled the Majapahit domain with an extra dash of diversity. Religious life was vibrant, with Buddhism and Hinduism existing in full harmony with each other, both leaving their physical mark on the land. The Majapahits resided over a renaissance of religious architecture not seen since the days of Prambanan and Borobudur 3 centuries earlier, presiding over the construction of grand Hindu and Buddhist temples, known as Chandi, many of which, like the Grand Chandi Penataran, still enrich the Javanese landscape to this day. No empire lasts forever, and when the time for the Majapahit's decline inevitably came, it came in the form of melodious muezzin, proclaiming the call of prayer from the peaks of minarets. Much like Hinduism and Buddhism before it, Islam did not arrive in maritime Southeast Asia at the spear tip of a conquering army, but spread organically along the monsoon trade winds, introduced by merchants from Arabia, Persia, India, and Muslim communities in China. Muslim traders have been present in the Nusantara archipelago for centuries, but it was only in the 14th century that their religion gained a substantial following among the local population. As Islam grew in prominence, it corroded the authority of the Majapahit kings, for their spiritual authority relied on being seen as the living incarnation of Hindu and Buddhist gods, an idea summarily rejected by the tenets of the Muslim faith.
Yeah, but what was it about the culture that made it ripe for this conversion into a different religion? It had always been there, but something had to take place significant within the culture to have that faith replace what was already in place.
Which asserted that no mortal man can be a god, and there is no god but the one God. In the year 1389, King Hayam Wuruk passed away after an impressive 49-year-long reign. Seeing the king's death as an opportunity, Parameswara, the Hindu Raja of a client city called Singapura, repudiated his vassalage to the Majapahit throne. In response, Majapahit forces invaded Parameswara's lands and drove him from his city. Forced into exile, Parameswara fled north to the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula. There, according to traditional accounts, he converted to Islam, took on the Persian name of Sri Iskandar Shah, and established the Sultanate of Malacca. This fledgling sultanate found its footing with the help of Zheng He, the most venerated sailor in Chinese history. Between 1405 and 1433, the great eunuch admiral embarked upon 7 journeys across the sea at the head of a fleet of massive treasure ships, all of which passed through Java and the Malacca Strait. In 1411, Prince Parameswara supplicated himself before the Grand Admiral and joined him on the return journey to China to pay homage to the Yongle Emperor in Beijing. As it had been since ancient times, political relations with China were crucial in the balance of power in Southeast Asia. Throughout the early 15th century, Chinese protection allowed the Malacca Sultanate to flourish, while the Majapahit entered into a period of slow decline. Back in 1405, a succession crisis in the Majapahit royal court had led to a civil war that severely damaged the empire's grip on their overseas vassals. In the decades that followed, client rulers across Sumatra, Borneo, and the Eastern Islands successfully broke away from Majapahit overlordship, all while the Malacca Sultanate quickly outpaced the Majapahit Empire as the primary trading hub in the region, while actively encouraging the spread of Islam throughout the region, which further eroded the power of the Hindu-Buddhist monarchy. Yeah. However, it was not the Malacca Sultanate that brought about the final demise of the Majapahit.
Hold on. But that's what I said before, right? So when you take the religious beliefs and you marry them with the political beliefs, and you have people that are following a political entity that they believe has some sort of divine what's the word I'm looking for? Ordinance, or not ordinance, but ordained divinely, that they you have the people, right? And here they're saying the more that started to follow Islam, then the Majapahit lost their control, their power, because fewer of them were the Buddhist Hindu philosophy or religion, and it all makes sense. It all makes sense.
And Admiral Zheng He was a devout Muslim, and throughout his 7 journeys, actively helped establish communities of Chinese, Arab, and Malay Muslims on the northern coast of Java. By 1475, these Muslim communities had coalesced into the first Muslim state in Java, the Sultanate of Demak. By 1527, this Islamic Sultanate overran the enfeebled remnants of the Majapahit realm, forcing the last of its Hindu-Buddhist rulers to flee to Bali, and putting out the final embers of an empire that had once dominated the entirety of maritime Southeast Asia. Although the Majapahit realm has long since been consigned to the graveyard of dead empires, its spirit still lives on in the hearts of the modern Indonesian people. In the 21st century, the Majapahit era looms large in Indonesia's history books, occupying a similar place in the national narrative as the Achaemenid Empire does in Iranian history or the Roman Empire does in Italian history. Moreover, the historical conquests of the Majapahit are considered to have set the precedent for the modern borders of the Republic of Indonesia. As the last holdout of native Hinduism in the Nusantara archipelago, the island of Bali styles itself as the cultural inheritor of the Majapahit legacy. However, even in the empire's home island of Java, which today is overwhelmingly Muslim, the locals still labor to preserve the cultural legacy of their Hindu-Buddhist ancestors. Today, the national motto of the Republic of Indonesia is Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity in diversity. Thus, it is easy to see why the modern Indonesian people cherish their Majapahit past, seeing the religiously tolerant, culturally diverse trading empire of old as a legacy to emulate, as Indonesia embraces its identity as a modern multicultural nation and its role as an economic leader on the world stage. More videos on Indonesian history are on the way. To ensure you don't miss them, make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button. Please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. It helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patron.
All right, we're going to leave it there. So, very cool. Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense that this is the empire that again, they laid the foundation for what Indonesia is today. And the fact that it's celebrated still, it hasn't been wiped out of history, out of the history books, out of the teachings, out of the culture. It's recognized for what it was, what it did, and what made, I mean, the colors, the flag colors, right? Red and white, that's where it comes from. But so much more as well. And you have this amalgam of different ideas, different peoples that are sort of, they're unified through diversity. That's important, okay? That's very, very important. You have to, because in the past it was, this group wipes this group out, wipes this group out, wipes that group out. But there was a lot of diversity there, right? All these different kingdoms, there had to be variations in culture and ideas and that sort of thing, but they were ruled under the empire. And as things change, as they always do in life, there's going to be these moments of turmoil, whether it be civil war or the dissolution of the dissolving of an empire. And now you have, a new age that's going to be coming in. And we'll be moving through the timeline here, the historical timeline. But this is fascinating to me. This is the kind of stuff that I really like to eat up. They are set up for success. Indonesia, Nusantara has been set up for success as far as their geographic location, as far as their agriculture, and being able to control those straits and the flow of trade is so very, very, very important. Very important. So very cool. This has been fun. This is gonna be awesome. Check out my Indonesia documentary series for all the other ones that I've done. I'm gonna try and get these out as much as often as I can. But some of them are longer than others, and it's gonna take some time to do that. But very cool. Comment below. God bless you. Jesus loves you. I will talk to you later.